بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قالوا إن أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا تريدون أن تصدونا عما كان يعبد آباؤنا فأتونا بسلطان مبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yesterday we began to speak about the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi afdhalu salatu wasalam. As we stated, that this mission is not something that can be explained in its entirety over the 10 days of Muharram that we are coming together to commemorate the tragedy that happened in Karbala. Nonetheless, we can present several aspects about the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam. The first mission, which we presented last night, was the mission that Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam, he mentioned himself as he was leaving from Medina towards Mecca, and then eventually onto Karbala. The Imam, he stated that he is leaving from Medina not to seek power, not to seek wealth, but he says in order to do amr bil ma'ruf, and amir bil ma'ruf wa anha anil munkar, to enjoy the good and to forbid that which is wrong. This is the first mission that the Imam himself, he states in his own words. Today we want to approach, or at least examine, one of the other missions of Imam Hussein that we come to understand from the movement of Imam Hussein, from the words from the Quran, from his actions, that another aspect of Imam Hussein's mission was to clarify the proper type of leadership. That what exactly is leadership? Because the Muslim Ummah, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, they fell into this, you could say, dispute, or at least, if it wasn't a dispute, at least this question came to mind, that who would lead after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, as we know, that there are two major opinions. One is that Imam Ali alayhi wasallam, he was appointed as the leader after Rasulullah. And some say that no, there was no direct appointment, but it was left up to the Ummah to decide. So we see from this, or at least this major question that Muslims had in their mind, that it was Imam Hussein's mission to clarify, or at least one of his missions was to clarify the proper aspect of leadership. And this aspect of leadership is something that all Muslims, in fact, to the point that the hadith that is narrated within our traditions, it is to the point where they call a mutawatir bil ma'na. Like, at least in meaning, it is something that there's no doubt that these words, or at least this context, it goes back to Rasulullah. And that is the importance of leadership. Of course, even if the Prophet himself, he didn't state it, but anyone who lives in a society, that they understand that there must be some form of leadership. In order for the society to run, to function, that there must be some sort of leadership. Of course, those who are anarchists, they will disagree, but nonetheless, among anarchists, they still have someone who is a leader. They say, no, we don't want leadership, but nonetheless, the anarchists, they have someone who's the leader, who's the thinker, who puts forth their ideas. So they also, again, by default, believe in leadership. So what is this question of leadership, or at least the hadith of leadership? We find that in the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and just to show that this is something that is mutawatir among the Muslims. In the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he narrates, or he reports, a hadith. And this hadith is from the Rasulullah, but narrated by Muawiyah. That Muawiyah, he states, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Because they don't say Ali, but we say sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So he says that the Prophet stated these words. He says, Man mata bighayri imamin mata mitatan jahiliyyah. That individual who passes away in this world, that they die. They move on to the next life. And they move on without having an imam, a leader. Then that individual dies the death of someone who lived in the time of Jahiliyyah. They lived in the time before the Prophet. He presented the final message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind. And of course, part of our discussion, as you know, that the transition of power after Muawiyah went from Muawiyah to his son Yazid. So at least we can at least imagine, or at least if he has been reciting this, or if he's narrating this hadith from Rasulullah, that he is presenting his son as a leader, as an imam for the ummah. Because the ummah cannot be left without a leader, without an imam. Likewise, we find in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, that it is narrated, again from Ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar, one of the individuals that Muawiyah, he told his son Yazid that he should make sure that he gets bay'ah from Abdullah ibn Umar. So Abdullah ibn Umar, he also narrates that the Prophet, and he states, Sami'tu Rasulullah, that he has heard Rasulullah. And he lived during the time of Rasulullah, he was a young man, but nonetheless, he said that he heard the Prophet say, Man mata wala bay'ata alayhi mata mitatan jahiliyyah. So that individual who dies, who passes, and he does not have bay'ah, he does not have allegiance. And of course, the allegiance will be to someone who is an authority, a leader within the community. So that individual passes, again, and does not have an allegiance to an authority. He dies as if he died during the time of Jahiliyyah, before Islam. Sahih Muslim also narrates from Muawiyah as well, similar hadith, that whoever dies without having an imam, mata mitatan jahiliyyah. These are three places where at least the word imam itself was used. In other hadith within Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, the other Musnad ibn Ahmad, and other Sunni scholars, other books of hadith, this particular hadith is narrated in a slightly different manner. And this is why we say that it is mutawatir bil ma'na, that it is a hadith that At least in the meaning, although the words may change, but the context of the hadith is the same. So some of the hadith, they say that whoever dies and they leave from under the authority of a sultan, meaning that there's a governor, there's a leader, and that person leaves from that authority. They don't have allegiance with the ruler. And that person dies the death of someone who lived during the time of Jahiliyyah, as if he never understood Islam. Another form of the hadith, at least within the books of our Sunni brothers, they say that whoever dies, وَفَارَقَ الْجَمَاعَةِ أَوْ خَرَجَ عَنِ الْجَمَاعَةِ, whoever dies and they have separated themselves from the ummah, from the nation, from the gathering, that whatever the Muslims are doing at the time, the jama'ah, the community, they separate themselves from the community. Then that person dies the death of Jahiliyyah. And there are few also that mentions the term Amir. That whoever leaves, whoever does not have an Amir, a leader, commander, then they die the death of Jahiliyyah. This particular hadith within the books of the Shia, our Shia scholars, our Shia books of hadith, is narrated in a different form. مَنْ مَاتَ وَلَمْ يَعْرِفْ إِمَامَ زَمَانِهِ مَاتَ مِيتَةً جَاهِلِيَّةً. This is the most famous one. That whoever dies and does not know the leader, the imam of his or her time, then they die the death of one who has lived during the time of Jahiliyyah. That whatever the Prophet has brought is as if they have never understood. What we can derive from this is three things. The first thing is that there must be leadership. And this is something that all Muslims, they have come to consensus on. Second, that leadership, the imam, the sultan, or whatever you want to call it, that this individual, he must be known. Or at least the people must understand, or at least decipher that who this leader is. The third thing is that leader, or at least second part, the leader is known and one makes allegiance to that leader. One recognizes the leader. The third thing is that opposing the leadership, going against, again, the jama'ah, assuming that the jama'ah, that everyone has recognized the leader, and they have, and one individual or a few individuals have gone outside of that leadership, then that is as if a person has died without understanding the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So we can derive these things. But at the same time, as we understand these things, we also have to pose certain questions. And that is, if there must be leadership based on intellect, based on the norm of most societies and gatherings, that is that leadership, or can that leadership be anyone? Can it be just anyone? And what exactly is the meaning? And if we say that it can be anyone, so what is the meaning of the statement which comes into all of these hadith, these narrations from Rasulullah, that whoever does not make allegiance to that leader, whoever does not recognize or know that leader, whoever does not have a leader, that person has died as if they have died the death of someone who is in Jahiliyyah. And the reason why we must ask this question, because even during the time of Jahiliyyah, there was leadership. There was leadership. Most of Bani Umayyah, they wielded a lot of authority during the time of Jahiliyyah. And Bani Hashim, they were actually the ones who were mostly protecting, and they had the responsibility of being the guardians of the Kaaba. At least the tribe of Bani Hashim, they were known as being more religious, whereas the Bani Umayyah, they actually willed a lot of power because the economy was in their hand. They controlled the market. So a lot of the politics were in the hands of Bani Umayyah. And this is why also when the Prophet, he came with the message of Islam, he came with the final message and revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they offered him everything. They said, just stop preaching this idea of one God. Stop preaching this idea that we must be just. Because of course in the Quran, one of the things that the Quran calls for, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls for, is also economic justice. To be upright, not to tamper with the scales. To be just. And so they wanted the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to back down from this message. So that's the question, that at least one of the questions we must ask. Can the leadership be anyone? And if that leadership should be based on a model that the Prophet himself he presented, or based on a different model, that is okay to change, or it's okay to, again, to go back to certain tribal thinking that was present before the Prophet, he established the government in Medina. The second question that we must ask, and that everyone must ask us, that historically we know that for a fact that Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam, he refused to make bay'ah to Yazid. Number two, Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam, he left from Medina. Eventually ended up in Karbala, where there was a war between Yazid's army and Imam Hussein. So then one must question that did Imam Hussein alayhi wasallam, did he separate from the Jama'ah? So therefore his death is, as the Prophet said, the death of one who has died before Islam? Did Imam Hussein, did he have bay'ah? Did he have an imam? Or was it opposite of that? And we must ask this question. Of course, sometimes we're not used to asking these questions, but we must ask. It's a legitimate question. And actually some have, unfortunately, made this, connection, or they make this type of statement that, well, Imam Hussein, Hussein ibn Ali, that he separated from the Jama'ah. He refused to make bay'ah. So yes, we must also ask this question. That did he leave the Jama'ah? Or not? Or on the other hand, we must ask that, was the leadership the way it should be? That if one separates, because it is a very important question to ask, that the Prophet, he stated that a person would die the death mitatan jahiliyyah. So we must really think and ask that, what is this mitatan jahiliyyah? To separate from the Jama'ah, from the community, to refuse leadership, to refuse to make allegiance. And this is a big question. To make allegiance to whom? To anyone? Or to make allegiance to the one who is a true imam? And of course this concept and this idea of imam and leadership, even when we look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he shows that yes, there's a difference between the types and structures of leadership. At one point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ مَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. One type of imamat or leadership that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he defines in the Quran, he says, and we have created them, and we have made them leaders that will guide by our command. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He again defines in the Quran, He says, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ مَأَمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ. That there are those who are also leaders. They are people who command, but they call towards the fire. In other words, they do not guide, they do not lead by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we must ask that if the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he is stating that one who does not have the Imam, is it either one of these Imams? When one group of leaders are commanding by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command, by the Quran, by the Sunnah of Rasulullah, and another type or group of leaders, they are calling to the fire. In other words, they're not guiding people, and they're not commanding people by the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the Sunnah of Rasulullah. So if you leave from that type of leadership, do you die the death of one who has died in the time of Jahiliyyah, Meetat al-Jahiliyyah, or not? And of course, the answer to this question will be the answer to the first question that we posed. Did Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam leave or separate from the Jama'at, from the community? Did Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam do something, or was his actions of opposing the so-called leader of his time such that he would die the death of one who lived during the time of Jahiliyyah or not? And of course, as we study history, at least a part of it we will give here, but you need to do also more research as well. And you will see that the leadership that was presented by Yazid was not something that was 100%, or even the percentage-wise, you can't even say that, maybe not even 5% perhaps. Was it in accordance with the Sunnah of Rasulullah? Many of the historians, whether Tabari, Suyuti, they all state that yes, Yazid, that he was someone that did not abide and openly observe the Sharia. And for this reason, Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam, he opposed Yazid. He refused to make bay'ah. And some have asked that this question, and we'll just address it briefly, that why during the time of Imam Hassan alayhi wasalam, Imam Hassan, he made peace. But Imam Hussein, he refused to make peace. He did not start the war, but he refused to accept a leadership that by no means wanted to establish the Sunnah of Rasulullah, by no means wanted to implement the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At least during the time of Imam Hassan, although there was differences between Muawiyah and Imam Ali, Muawiyah and Imam Hassan, to some extent there was, again, the implementation of the Quran, the laws of the Quran. But Yazid openly opposed these laws. He openly opposed the Sunnah of Rasulullah. So therefore he rose up. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And this is why we see that, again, going back to the verse, this dialogue that we started our discussion with in Surah Ibrahim, verse 10 and 11, that when someone, or at least those who oppose the prophets, as the verse states, that when the prophet, he brought the concept of tawheed, of oneness, about He brought the concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. But the response of the people were, but you're no one, you're people just like us. In antum illa basharun mithluna. Turiduna an tasudduna amma kana ya'budu aba'una. That they said to the prophets, and again, this is applicable to those who walked in the footsteps of the Prophet, that no, you're just people like us. And you want to prevent us from following and worshipping what our fathers have worshipped. فَأْتُونَا بِسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ. So therefore, then you come with clear authority, whether that authority is spiritual, whether it is a miracle, as we mentioned, or whether that authority is actual political power. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states in other verses that وَيُسَلِّتُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَيُسَلِّتُ رُسُلَهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. That at times, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives His prophets authority over you. One of the examples is like Sulaiman. He had a kingdom. Sulaiman, he was not only a prophet, but also he was one who wielded authority, political authority. The Prophet Ayub also. The Prophet Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him sulta, gave him power and authority, put him in a position of authority over mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the Prophet Musa as well in a position of authority. That, as we mentioned yesterday, that Allah said He sent Musa and Harun بِآيَاتِنَا وَسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ, with His miracle, with His signs, but also with authority. Again, this becomes another question, because many people, many Muslims, sometimes others, they ask this, well, if truly the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salatu wassalam, they were supposed to lead, if truly the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salatu wassalam, as we say, that they are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are among those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored, then how come they did not grasp power? How come Imam Hussein alayhi afdhalu salatu wassalam did not defeat the army of Yazid in Karbala? He's just like anyone. So, and this is the way some think, and again, we have to think about this. Is this the reality? That he's just like any other person within the ummah. And if truly he was someone special, فَأْتُوا بِسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ, then he should have grasped authority. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have favored him and given him authority, made him win. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He replies, or at least He provides a response to this. The same as the prophets, they had stated, at least He makes us aware that the prophet stated in Surah Ibrahim, verse 11, that when the individuals who disbelieve, they said that the prophets are just individuals like them, and if really they are special, then they should come with some clear authority. The prophets, they responded, قالت لهم رسلهم إن نحن إلا بشر مثلكم ولكن الله يمن على من يشاء من عباده وما كان لنا أن نأتيكم بسلطان إلا بإذن الله وعلى الله فيتوكل المؤمنون. They stated that yes, we are people just like you. In the aspect of our humanity, there's no difference between us. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He favors some of His servants over others. The first characteristic, and we will explain more about this, is being a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favors some of His servants over others. Then they say, وَمَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نَأْتِيَكُمْ بِسُلْطَانٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. That whether we come with a power, an authority, Whether that power and authority, as we mentioned yesterday, is sulta ma'nawiyya, it is a spiritual authority that they present in the form of miracles, in the form of things which are, they say, al-karamat, miraculous deeds, or whether that authority is in political authority. He said, this is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is based upon the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He wants, and He wills, and He deems it necessary, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ensure and make sure that that happens. He says, and the believers rely and they depend and they put their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this tells us one thing, that political authority itself is not a condition and criteria of prophethood, nor is it a condition of the imamate, that if a person does not have this political authority, then they're not the imam. Whether they are in power, as Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, whether they're in power or not in power, then the imam is the imam. That individual who fulfills that criterion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has stated in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ مَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا, that they are an imam who leads by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who leads by the Quran, who makes his life as an example of the Quran itself. And this brings us to, again, one of the aspects that we must definitely study and examine. And this is within the context of the hadith, or this understanding that there must be an authority, there must be a leadership, and that leadership must be recognized. How do we recognize the leadership? How do we know that the imam is the imam? How do we know that who we should follow? And of course, many of us, we take the simple way, because there's 3 levels or 3 ways in which we can know the imam. One's the simplistic way, that, okay, we know the history of the imam, or at least those individuals who we call leaders. We know their history, when they were born, where they were born, what they did in their life. So this is